It's time for Johnny and the Professor. Common sense in senseless time.
Democrat running for council in Upper Manhattan denies being an anti-Semite.
But he does admit to being a liar.
If Hillary Clinton would have won the presidency, I don't think you'd be hearing a word about any Russian involvement in our elections.
I told Ryan, I fundamentally disagree with virtually everything you've decided about my character.
Rumor is that Google has already replaced the employee. In the spirit of diversity, she's actually a single black mother, transgender, pansexual, undocumented immigrant with a PhD in women's studies, and she has rickets. So she is a modern marvel.
That the only reason it exists was to have a strong female at the forefront of the Avengers. But they prioritized that over good writing. I say this about comics too, and how they sacrifice good storytelling and character building for non-white male characters by overemphasizing their minority status.
It's a standard ploy of the Democrats. Whenever they lose, they won't accept it.
It's time for Johnny and the Professor.
Here you have someone who falsely claimed to be an historically oppressed minority in order to get a job reserved for members of that group, American Indians. Totally lied in order to make money, and that's cool. And yet someone who jokes about it is the bigot. Like, how does that work exactly?
Yet again, our corporate media has been caught frothing with hysteria over a false story.
Johnny and the Professor.
Well, it's Johnny and the Professor.
Common sense for senseless times.
Where we talk politics, pop culture, and pulchritude. What is pulchritude?
Pulchritude is a word for beauty or beautiful, but particularly feminine.
Thank you. I am, aren't I?
Well, I am not. I have no official opinion on that one way or the other.
So what's been going on in the wacky world of the world?
You know, the main thing that seems to be popping up in the news, the first stories are everything that's happening as far as trying to get impeachment going.
They've been doing that since before the election.
Well, yeah, that's
over.
One thing about it. It's always been an issue, which is, you know, and now it's weird because it just, people say, well, you're just being pro-Trump. I go, no, I'm just being anti-stupidity. You know, the people who are doing this are really stupid. I mean, first it was Russia and all this and all the investigations, and the answer is zilch. Okay, and now it's this Ukraine phone call, which is, I mean, we talked about that in a show. It's zilch. Whistleblower complaints, zilch.
It seems like whenever you catch someone else doing something wrong, they automatically try to put the blame back on you instead.
Well, that does seem to be a method that people use. They'll shift it. You know, like I said, we've talked about the idea, are they just projecting themselves on others since they know they're horrible, corrupt people, then therefore everyone must be a horrible, corrupt person. The problem with this is that it's harmful to the nation. Wouldn't it be nice if the House of Representatives was actually putting forth law and legislature and trying to make better things to improve this nation rather than investing all of its efforts on trying to just destroy the president?
Oh, you're just being pro-Trump.
Well, you know, the problem is that if it had, when they did it to Bill Clinton, I thought it was a waste of time too. I mean, Bill Clinton was impeached. He shouldn't have been. He did technically commit, well, not technically, he did commit a crime. He lied in front of a grand jury involving his sex scandal stuff.
Right.
And that is a felony. Now, if you want to prosecute him as a felony once he leaves office for that, I haven't got a problem with that. Did it actually affect his presidency? Did he betray the United States of America by doing it?
No.
I mean, it isn't. So it was a waste of time. If, you know, this is the whole thing. And Donald Trump has far less, as far as I can tell, Donald Trump has never severely broken the law. I mean, I don't...
Severely?
I don't know. Has he ever paid a bribe to a mafia guy so he can get the cement for his building? Probably. You know, I don't, but there's nothing in it. He's never been arrested. He's never been, you know, anything other than fined. And he's gone through levels of investigation that no other president would want to go through. The last person that had that level was Bill Clinton. I'm a weird drawing analogy between the two of them, but, you know, I think Bill Clinton was actually a fairly good president. I think he was a horn dog, but it was the last time we had a balanced
So was
budget.
Kennedy, though, right?
Kennedy was a bit of a horn dog. Clinton is in his own class for that. And his opposite number in the Republicans would be Richard Nixon. They both were actually decent presidents that had personal issues that made them bad men, but actually fairly good presidents. And you know, is Donald Trump a saint? I don't think so. But is he guilty of anything? I can tell you this whole Ukrainian stuff, obviously the Russia stuff, this is all a bunch of nonsense. It's just we have to get him out. It's all a plan to try to. Why don't you just beat him in the election?
Is it a coup d'état, like some people are saying?
You know, in a way, it actually is. I mean, you could easily make that argument that you're trying to overthrow a legally elected president just because you don't like him.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot accept the fact that Trump's big crime, as far as I can tell, is that he beat Hillary Clinton, and he made a fool of the Democrats, and he made a fool of the news media, and those are very closely linked these days. And they're just going to constantly. That seems to be his big crime. I look at the other side and say, I don't think he's a perfect man by any means. But has he done a lot of good? Unemployment's low, the economy's doing well.
What about his tweets?
Who cares about his tweets? I mean, I really do. Unless you're tweeting missile codes out or something, he's not betraying any trust in the United States. He's also a citizen of the United States who has freedom of speech, in theory. He has a right to tweet what he wants. And sometimes I've read his tweets and I go, this guy is an idiot. And then afterwards things go another way and I go, either that or maybe he's a lot more clever or better at this than I think. Because is he just tweeting to get the left going insane, and while he's actually doing something else? Like I said, I mean, my problem with people who are the big anti-Trumpers and the Trump haters, and like I said, I'm pro-president. I was pro-Obama. I didn't agree with Obama's policies, but I was in favor of him because he's president of the United States. I want him to do the best job he could.
Right, you want him to succeed, right?
I want him to succeed because if the president succeeds, the country succeeds. If Bush was that way, I didn't like when George Bush was elected. I go, here we go, another just in the pocket big business Republican who's going to do nothing in office. And then we had 9/11. Bush rose to the occasion for 9/11, but then again, he's also responsible for allowing the government to go through the whole 2008 recession and the whole banking scandal. I mean, his hands and fingers are all in that.
Well, it's my understanding that the Bush administration, they raised red flags. They said, hey, there's going to be a problem here if we don't, and every time it was resistance by the other side of the aisle.
It was mostly mostly Democrats, though Republicans too. There's big money wherever there's big money, you're going to get politicians wanting to go along with things. I would agree with that, but he is the president of the United States. I mean, he can. We've learned that's something we can learn from Donald Trump. He can go directly to the American people and saying, these people are ripping you off. You have to stop this. He has a lot of power and authority as the chief administrator.
Isn't he doing that now? And nobody's listening. They're saying, shut up, racist.
Well, the left does, but the right doesn't. See, I mean, and again, the message gets out over and over again because the liberal media dislikes him so much that they have to repeat everything he says. They're locked in this codependent relationship with Donald Trump. Everything he says, they're like an ex that's stalking him and keying his car or something.
It's almost like the media became irrelevant in this time of technology, and so in order to remain relevant, they have to do these things. What sells a better headline? Trump doing good, economy improving, or Trump's a racist and sucks, and everything else they currently do, because the people that agree are going to subscribe. The people that don't agree are going to subscribe just to hear all the lies the media is telling. Does that make sense?
What I'm hearing you saying is that, do they actually hate Trump as much as they sound like, or are they just selling themselves so they can make good money and get good headlines? Because Trump is sensational, and sensational sells better than boring. I mean, the media, you're right. Good news, if you get good news over and over again, I mean, one of Trump's lines is you're going to get so tired of winning. Well, the problem with that, either it's true. If you're winning and winning and winning, then people become lackadaisical about it. They just don't, it isn't going to sell papers, it isn't going to get clicks.
So like the Joker movie and the journalists trying to set up Joaquin Phoenix about, mass shootings. First it was something else. I don't remember what it was. They tried to...
It was the mentally insane, I think.
Yeah.
Complaining against the insane. And
right.
The mentally...
Right. And nobody bit. And so now they threw out the whole interview with, is it going to promote mass shootings? And okay, well, they took the bait on that one, and now it sparked this big thing to where Warner Brothers bans reporters, journalists from the red carpet premiere because of it. But at least they caused a ruckus to where we're talking about it.
We're talking about it, and people are talking about it. I thought it was interesting when Warner Brothers did actually block it. I wondered if that was going to be a trend in the future, because most of them look at this and go, we don't need you anymore.
Right.
That we have the internet, we can put forth far more information. And this is the thing. This is the one thing, if you want to talk about, the one thing that Donald Trump did. Barack Obama started it. Trump mastered it. Was using social media as a method to get out your message. What does Donald Trump have in followers? 20, 30 million people or something?
Something like that.
Can you imagine a president just being able? FDR did fireside chats, and everyone in the country only had radios, and he didn't get that many people listening. It's an amazing way to get around it. And I wonder how many politicians and other people, and in this case, we're talking about a studio, just says, do what we say, or we'll just go around you. Promote our stuff the way we want you to, or we'll just ignore you. You need us more than it used to be. You need the press. There's no such thing as bad press, they always said.
Right.
Now I'm wondering, do we need them anymore as far as that type of a press?
People used to trust Walter Cronkite.
Right.
Is Walter Cronkite going to ask an interview question like, what is Lando Calrissian's sexual preference?
No, of course not. But most people. But if you look at, I've read bios on Walter Cronkite. He was pretty much a lefty also for the time. But again, that was a person who was, well, let's just say he was a Democrat. He leaned to the left generally. But again, that was back in the time when John F. Kennedy was a Democrat, and he couldn't run in the Democratic Party today.
Right.
He was a low tax, strong business candidate.
Right.
And wouldn't even recognize him in the modern party. I'm not even sure Bill Clinton could run in the modern Democratic Party, because he's willing to work with the opposite side. Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton are two people that probably can't agree on anything, yet they were able to balance the budget.
Right, they could work together, but it just doesn't seem like these people want to do anything.
Well, I think it's both sides are to blame. They've become so polarized. But I don't think it's everybody. If I went through the House of Representatives and actually pulled the people aside and made them, compelled them to tell the truth through, sodium pentothal or whatever, you'd probably find a lot of them don't agree with the stuff that's going on. It isn't Cortez or Tlaib or whatever that are actually running the party. Most of them probably are very opposed to it. But I do think that, their leadership is in a certain direction. I think the Republicans are the same way. Mm-hmm. They're willing to follow the McConnells and people like that, when a lot of them would probably like to just throw these bums out and do something for real. Maybe work with the Democrats and actually make things. But you'd have to get rid of the obnoxious people in charge that are there only trying to sustain their power rather than doing what's best for the country.
I always thought the president was in charge.
Well, the president's in charge of 1/3 of the government. The House of Representatives and the Senate combined equal the power of the presidency. So when the House of Representatives say we're equal to the president, they're not. They're full of crap. They're half as equal to the president, because the Senate has to. That's why the House can't impeach. The House can't impeach. Impeach is the accusation for a trial for the president. The Senate actually conducts the trial.
Right.
So the House can put forth orders of impeachment. It'll go to the Senate, and the Senate will not vote for it, because you need 67 people to agree to impeach a president, and then you don't have 67 Republicans and Democrats that would even be willing to do that in the Senate, because obviously you would need to have both.
It's just they're spending so much time on this nonsense that nothing's getting done.
And that's
for 3 years now, almost 4 years, nothing has gotten done.
Well, that's the sad part. Things have gotten done, but they've only been done by the little bit with the Republicans in the beginning, that healthcare and things like tax reform. They squandered their time on healthcare. That was stupid. But the only person that's doing stuff seems to be the president, because he's having to work without the Congress, because they can't agree on anything.
Right.
Moderates now facing threats and political retribution if they work with Republicans.
The Senate today voted 59-41 to terminate the president's national emergency declaration to build a border wall.
More now on the health care battle in the Senate. Democrats launching a marathon protest last night.
4 Republicans and an independent joined House Democrats in approving a resolution against President Trump's tweets.
I just wish more people weren't stupid and just saw it for what it is, instead of what they hoped it is.
Term limits, getting the people out of there, rotating them through. I can tell you, when you read the Federalist Papers, again, these are the papers that were written on trying to get the Constitution confirmed. If you read the ideas that are going there, the idea of political parties originally was thought of as a horrible idea. They formed up kind of anyway. You had Adams and Jefferson kind of on different sides very quickly. But the idea of it is that a political party is a special interest group. People say, well, that's like so is the NRA. The NRA is a special interest interest group when it deals with the government. So is the Democrat or the Republican Party. They don't represent what's best for the country. They represent what's best for their party. You just have to kind of pick you're literally picking the one that'll do the least harm, or hopefully do the best.
Well, you're a history guy. Didn't it used to be where wasn't there a time where, okay, I want to run for a political position, I'm going to leave my job as a shopkeeper or working here at this restaurant, I'm going to go do this term to try to make some changes that I think need to be changed, and then go back after I'm done with my term, go back to my old job and not make an entire career out of it.
Well, but they made it a little too lucrative for that. I mean, the pay's decent. I mean,
but it used to be that way, right?
It used to. People often didn't. There were no such thing as really career politicians. And when you look back in the 1800s. When we start getting into the 20th century, we start seeing the career politician appearing more and more again. People that will spend 20 years, 30 years in the House or the Senate, or whatever thing they happen to be, because it's cushy. And this is the whole thing about campaign finance reform. They're able to make too much money. Even and this is one thing in modern times, is that the things that people are allowed to do now, like you can give a senator a membership to your golf course for free, and they don't consider that a bribe. I can tell you, back in the 1940s, that's what's called a bribe.
Yeah.
You're bribing them. If you're giving them things of value, and if it's free flights, whatever it happens to be, you're giving something to the person that benefits them in hope to influence their vote.
So when did that change?
It's changed in the 20th century. I mean, we mostly see the big shifts in about the 1960s.
Oh, of course.
Getting into
the
money.
60s.
Well, after the war, people were, when you had big issues, World War II, got everybody thinking about being part of the whole country and working together and along those lines. Then we end up with the 50s, and it's getting over the war and the beginning, and we still have the red threat. But you get career politicians being more and more showing up in those periods. They happened every once in a while. There were people, and what was interesting used to be someone would serve like a term in the Senate and then go serve maybe a couple terms in the House. You could go and do that. But I see personally, my solution is term restrictions on senators and members of the House. Senators get 6-year terms, so they get 2 terms, and they cannot serve after that. House would get, they would get 6 terms, obviously, because their terms are 2 years each. So they both get 12 years, and after that, they're done.
Why just them? Why can't everybody have term limits?
Well, you could, but I mean, for the federal government, that would be the president has term limits. The president only gets 2 terms in office. That had been the tradition that was established by George Washington. Washington served 2 terms, and he retired, and every president until FDR only served 2 terms at the most. It was FDR who decided he was indispensable because of the war and the Depression, and he ran for more terms. And he's the reason why the Constitution was amended to restrict the president's terms, because he served for 4 terms. Well, 3 terms and 2 years of a term, because he died during his last term. But that was it. And now President Trump can only serve 2 terms. I mean, he can't go 2 terms and then retire and then come back and serve 2 more terms again. No, he can only serve 8 years as a total cumulative maximum amount. He could go run for the House or Senate if he wanted to, which would be funny.
Right.
But that's it. I don't. If you're trying to tell me presidents have to be restricted in power, then congressmen and senators should be
right.
also.
They should all have to be.
If nothing else, by restricting them to the 12-year period, you'd catch a lot more of them in corruption, because they'd have less time to get their payoffs and their monies from their special interests, so they're much more likely to make mistakes.
Right.
And you could put more of them in jail that way.
So how come we don't do this?
To do it at the federal level, states can individual states could put in restrictions on it if they want, but if you wanted to change it for the nation, you'd have to amend the Constitution. That's where the restrictions on the president's term came from the Constitution, and again that requires a constitutional amendment procedure. There's methods of doing that, but generally it starts in the House or the Senate. So you'd have to get them to agree that they want to do term restrictions, and yet they are the ones who also can vote themselves raises. I want that job where I can just vote myself a raise anytime I feel like it. And it isn't just the salaries; it's the bennies that come with it. They spend 3 times as much in their benefits and their travel bonuses and their office allotments and all that fun stuff they do in their actual salary. And their salary is, a rep makes $185,000 a year, I believe, and a senator makes like $240,000.
Well, I've said this before in my commentaries that California's pension debt alone put them in the red, like $175.1 billion.
Yeah, well, it's because it's an amazing, when you're dealing with. People need to realize that that money comes from somewhere, and if you want to restrict power, if you want to have a cleaner government, you need to have term limits, and you have to have campaign finance reform. This one thing about this weird push for the impeachment idea is, I think the Trump campaign has made over $100 million in donations in this period because there's so many people that are so angry about what's being done. They look at it as an attack on the President of the United States. Mm-hmm. And again, whether you like Trump or not, it is an attack on the President of the United States. If it happened to Obama, it would have been an attack on the presidency then too.
They were attacking Obama all the time.
They were complaining about Obama. They weren't trying to remove him from office. Opposition to policy and procedure is not the same. Your enemies, your opposition, shouldn't be enemies, you should be opposition. Your opposition has a right to say, you don't know what you're doing and we'd like to do it better. But it doesn't change the fact but that's different than saying, we disagree with you, we're going to remove you from office and circumvent the will of the American people.
What I don't understand, for years we've been saying, we need a president that's not connected, that's not a career politician, that's not bought and paid for. And then we get one, oh my gosh, it's the enemy. He's the enemy.
Well, the weird part about that, when you look at statistically, when you're looking at, I always have problems with polls and statistics because I know they can be, polls don't lie, but pollsters do. So, I mean, you have to be careful on how that you read it. But if it's a neutral poll, like they poll Republicans, and Trump's approval rate amongst Republicans, either very approve or like moderately approve, is something like 92%. I mean, he's incredibly popular in the Republican Party.
He didn't used to be.
No, but I mean, that's in the Republican Party only.
Boy, I know.
When you do a normal poll on Trump, he comes out in the 40s from a national poll. I get news for you. I think he's around, he's anywhere from 42 to 48, depending on the pollster. I get news for you. Barack Obama at the same time in his presidency was 42 to 48% also. It's just more loud and vicious about it in dealing with Trump, because again, if you call Trump a name, it doesn't immediately mark you as being some kind of a racist or bigot. He's a person that can be targeted. He's the ultimate sin, especially from people on the left. He's a white male, successful white male. He therefore must be the cause of all the problems, because if you're trying to run a philosophy of victimology, you have to have someone who is the oppressor. That seems to be one of the problems, I think, with the Democratic Party today. We've talked about this. I want them to go back to being the Democratic Party of even Jimmy Carter, or especially John F. Kennedy. Someone who can say, we want to do things. We want to be compassionate, but we also but we're willing to work with Republicans. We realize that we don't have the answers to everything, and we'll come up with agreements between us. And if they could do that, maybe I'm just, maybe it's a pipe dream. Maybe I might as well be looking for unicorns. But I do think that that's what we should have. I want the Democratic Party to succeed as a party that represents the people, not a party that represents a small minority of obnoxious people.
The party that represents the party.
That's exactly it. That it's only this victimology. It's all based on the oppressor versus the oppressed, and therefore everyone has to be bad.
Well, it's Johnny and the Professor. We talk about politics, pop culture, and pulchritude. Who do we have for guest today?
Our guest today, speaking of pulchritude, is Joy Vila. And Joy Vila is an independent recording artist. She's had made quite a splash at a lot of the Grammy Awards because she always wears very unusual gowns. The one that made the biggest splash was 2 years ago, which was her Make America Great gown. She has been in the White House, I know, at least 3 occasions in the recent time. As a matter of fact, we were going to have her on last week, but lo and behold, she was at a White House celebration.
Oh, life is rough for her, huh?
That's like I said, well, this is the closest we're probably going to ever get to the White House.
Right.
This is Johnny and the Professor. Common sense in senseless times.
And then I always have these people like, excuse me, you're supposed to say we're pregnant? You're supposed to say we're pregnant? It's like, well, I'm not a seahorse, so I'm not pregnant. My wife is pregnant. Look at her, she's putting on weight, her feet are swelling up. She's miserable. I'm still doing pull-ups. I'm crushing it. While being pregnant, I'm still drinking, smoking, yeah.
Contact the show at jpshowfm@gmail.com. This is Johnny and the Professor. Common sense in senseless times.
The director of the new Joker movie says that woke culture is to blame for the decline of comedy.
Contact the show at jpshowfm@gmail.com.
Well, it's Johnny and the Professor, where we talk politics, pop culture, and pulchritude.
Our guest today is Joy Vila, and for probably more people know way more about her than they know about me. But Joy Vila is a very good singer and songwriter. She's an internet personality and an outspoken person on conservative values and an unabashed supporter of Donald Trump.
What? Oh, she's so full of hate. What? She has to be if she's a Trump supporter, right?
So, Joy, can you confirm the fact that you're not full of hatred?
Donnie, I am not filled with hate. I just had to check real quick.
I don't like the term fan because it sounds like fanatic, but I definitely appreciate your work. I've listened to and have some of your music at home. I really enjoyed your freedom fight for it. I think that's a great piece. You did that with a gentleman, I can't remember his name, that worked with you on that.
Yeah, that's Flint Bedrock.
Yeah, I remember he did, and it's a really, really good piece. I really like that one. I saw your video of Alone, and I came to the conclusion if they need to cast another person for Harley Quinn for the movies, that video, boy, I looked at you and said that lady looks pretty crazy in some of them. She'd make a really good Harley Quinn.
Oh yeah.
So you need to talk to the people at Suicide Squad and have them see if they'll get you for the next movie.
That's a great idea. I would love that. For
some of our audience who may or may not be familiar, that Joy had the #1 EP that was "I Make the Static." Mm-hmm. It was #1 spot on iTunes and on Amazon, and that was right after your 2017 Grammy appearance.
That's right.
When you wore that's when you wore the "Make America Great" dress.
That's exactly right. Yes.
And boy, I mean
#1 on Billboard Alternative and #12 on Billboard.
Top 20 albums.
Yeah, you beat out like Beyonce. You beat out all these other people.
Yes, it was. It's been one of the most amazing things ever. I'm really proud of it.
Well, congratulations.
I like to look at it. There is no competition for who I am. Because it's so unique. What I do, I'm just incredibly grateful to have the fans I do, and I do a lot of connecting with fans and outreach, and I travel around the country speaking and doing shows. So it's a great life, and I'm a rock and roll, punk rock, conservative artist. That's who I am.
Which definitely sounds like a contradiction of terms for a lot of people in the world today.
Right.
Which is strange because there's no reason it should be. I understand that you just recently got back from a little shindig at a place called the White House.
Yes, you might have heard of that place, the People's House, the White House. I actually, in between, when we first reached out for the interviews, and my schedule was so crazy, but I was at the White House for the social media summit, and then now I just came back from the White House for Hispanic Heritage Month. So it's incredible. They're going to have to just give me a room there,
right?
Eventually. But it was so good to see the president again, and to be able to, see how much he appreciates this country. And he's really working for us, the aims of the people. And it was wonderful. It was a wild, colorful, full of Latin Americans, Hispanics, Latinos. Like, we were going nuts. We were having fun, eating great food, laughing. He gave a great speech. There's music. I mean, it was an absolute celebration of what Hispanic Americans and Hispanics have done for this nation. And it was great.
You don't hear about any of the positive things going on. How come it's not being covered?
Well, because it doesn't fit their narrative. You don't hear about that, and that's the problem, is that President Trump's actually doing a lot for African Americans and Hispanic Americans, which I am both. So these are the things that are swept under the rug because the media wants to paint him as this devil, because otherwise they can't sell fear gloom, shame, blame, all this nightmare scenario. They can't sell it to the American people if the president is not all bad, right? They want to paint him as the villain. When in truth, he allocated over $1 billion to the Urban Revitalization Act, which helps brown and black people. He allocated money towards historical black colleges and universities. He's been able to, build the wall, parts of the wall are coming up with protect people on the, border towns, which are 90% Hispanics. Most ICE agents are Hispanic. So he's protecting Americans of all colors. Historic lows in unemployment for black Americans, for Hispanic Americans, and gun owners and business owners are rising. And amongst them, black women are some of the highest rising statistics for owning a business and for owning guns, which is amazing. So, we're actually thriving and doing a great job under this economy, under President Trump, because he's fighting for us.
When you come out as a conservative, they probably have some kind of issue with you now because you back up the president and conservative values. How do you combat that?
Well, what I do is I just be myself. That's the best way to do it, I just stay strong. I create. I'm an artist all around, so I paint, I make music, I talk to people who think like me, and I just keep posting. And I do it with a smile on my face. If you get angry, if you engage some of these trolls where they are, it gets really nasty and ugly. I get racist slurs thrown at me all the time, misogynist rape threats. People threatening my life and trying to find my family and stalking. I mean, it's insane. The last couple of years, 4 years, have been really crazy, but they've been so good, too. And what I do is I just stand firm. And I get so many letters from people who say, thank you for what you do. I'm a 16-year-old conservative in high school, and you made me proud to be who I am. Thank you for what you do. I'm an artist. I'm a conservative. Like, all these letters, all these messages come in. And the more they hate, the more it actually makes me want to just keep going. Because I look at all the antagonism and the attacks that the president and the administration get. Ooh, I got nothing so far.
I mean, could you imagine what it's like? I mean, you've actually met the president, and you can say hi from us to him if you see him next time. Let us know. We would love to talk with him. 95% or something of the media stories that are put up on the mainstream media are negative against this president. So it doesn't surprise me that, you can imagine having, 95% of the time you're hearing people saying lying, horrible, nasty things about you, and yet he still keeps trying to go on and be president and do the best that he can and actually do what's best for this nation. It just always amazed me. Now, I do know that you were, in July, you were at the White House also. No name dropping here, but you were there a couple months ago, too. And there was a little bit of an altercation involving Sebastian Gorka. And as I understand it, because I heard an interview where you talked about it, you were kind of the cause of it.
Yes, I was the cause. Well, this guy, his name is Ryan Karem.
That's correct.
He's a Playboy reporter, of all things, and he says, complaining that the president wasn't taking questions. And I said, well, he took questions from us. If it weren't fake news, then he would probably take questions from you. And then he starts complaining even louder, and then he goes, you guys are a group looking for demonic possession. And we were like, what? And then that's when Gorka came over and was like, oh, what are you? You're not a journalist. You're a punk. Because he was insulting us. And the guy was, close to me. So Gorka came over. And then I just told them, straight up, you need to stop being fake news. We want to respect you guys. I told him, be a gentleman. Because he was telling Gorka, let's take it outside. And, he was threatening him. And he got his press credentials revoked because of this.
Wow.
It was funny. You were reprimanding him I think the term
the
you was...
child he was acting
Yeah, exactly. It was kind of you were saying a Mama Joy moment. You were shaking
Mama Joy, that's right, exactly. Mama Joy came out, I was like, no. You sit down in the corner.
Go and think about what you've done.
Go and think about what you've done, and then if you apologize, you'll get a snack.
I think you put most of the mainstream media in an interesting perspective. They all need to be put in the corner and they'll get their sippy cup if they can actually behave.
Exactly. Mama Joy didn't come to play. That's what's going to happen now.
Do you think that the mainstream media is pretty much getting on its last legs? That things like alternative media, again, you're a citizen journalist. You go out and talk to the people directly. Yes. Is part of this problem the media just that they actually think they're dying and that they're losing this whole narrative, that their worldview they have?
I think they're just so grounded in, and people are so used to them. But look at newspapers. Newspapers were the only place you would get news. Nobody thought newspapers would die, but they're dying, right? Printed newspapers, most of them are going online, and they're struggling. So I do think mainstream media is struggling for sure, and will continue to struggle because of new media, because of people, dare I say it, like myself, people like Anomaly, InfoWars, all kinds of people out there. Laura Loomer, there's
Brandon Tatum
who are reporting. Brandon Tatum, Brandon Strzok of Walk Away. I mean, there's so many people we would rather get our news from that we trust, you guys, than the nonsense out there. Now, I think it's going to be, they're going to fight every inch of their death. It's going to definitely be a long, they're either going to have to change and start representing the other half of America, or they're going to die. And I think that we're at that position where they can go either way, but they're definitely dying. It's definitely going to become more and more equal. There'll always be left news, there'll always be a left wing. That's okay, but the power that they have now and the absolute evil that the Democrats are running, this whole socialism, this whole control, let the government run your life, let's kill babies, like all of that evilness needs to stop. It needs to be pushed down the corner where it belongs and eviscerated. And that's what President Trump is doing with the help of the American people. So, I have Democratic friends. I don't think there ever won't be Democrats or left-wing newspapers, but they're controlling everything right now, and that's going to stop. I firmly believe that that's dying out.
When you were at the White House, I mean, one of the issues that was going on this week has been the issue of the Democrats trying to up the impeachment argument off of this ridiculous call to the president of the Ukraine. Do you have any insights on that? Did you hear anything or anybody talk about that at all?
We were just celebrating. It was just great to see the president. He spent a lot of time with us. He signed a lot of MAGA hats. We were celebrating. When we're there, it's just a fun, place to relax and have fun in people's house. But everybody knows this is phony. It's a phony witch hunt.
Oh, it is.
It's absolutely not going to go through. They have nothing. Adam Schiff, unfortunately, is my congressman.
Yeah.
We need to flush him out.
You were talking about the idea of the media dying, and Johnny and I have talked about this in the past, that I honestly think that what's going to happen in 2020 is that if the way things are going with the way the Democrats are kind of shooting themselves in the foot on these matters and the lying and all this, that they could literally end up, either the Democrats are going to be destroyed as a party and have to form something else, or they're going to have to reform and become an actual liberal party and not just be these leftist crazies. I don't mind the idea of having a person on the left giving me an opinion, but I don't want someone who is a leftist crazy. As soon as you open your mouth, they say, well, I don't want to talk to you. You're a name. You're a racist. You're a misogynist. You're a whatever. I mean, there's no future in that for that party. And I'd like them to actually get defeated in 2020 so they have an opportunity to fix themselves.
Yeah. They need to fix it. They need to join with us, and they need to fix this and just join with the winning team. The more they fight, the deeper the hole they get into. And it's pathetic, and it's not helping anybody. It's hurting people.
What I'm concerned with is the people who support them are supporting these socialist ideals and this socialist agenda. Most of them don't know what socialism actually is, like the definition, but they're all for it.
Don't.
And they're all for it because, free health care and basic income and, I don't have to work and it sounds great and rose petals and unicorns, and they don't really understand.
Exactly.
Right.
Free. Wow.
They don't understand what it really is and what it really leads to, but they still support it because President Trump's a racist. They just know it. They don't have any facts or evidence, but they just know it.
Exactly. That's it. It's all emotions. It's all feelings. And feelings are valid, but they don't belong in politics.
Well,
They have nothing to do with the law. And the Democrats know that. People are totally shysters. They're shysters. They've been have to pull the wool over people's eyes. I was a Democrat. I voted for Obama. I was a left-leaning independent. I was going to vote for Bernie. I was completely brainwashed because I had no clue. I didn't research anything. I've never met a Democrat that is fully researched. Not once in my life. Once you fully research the laws, the Constitution, the candidates, what the platforms, what that will actually translate to, you become a conservative or an independent or a libertarian, I think, because now you're educated.
Especially their history.
You look at history, it's ridiculous that people are still voting this way. And Democrats should be very upset. True Democrats, true classical liberals, which are closer to moderates, should be very upset that, socialism has hijacked their party.
It's interesting.
Extremism.
You and Johnny both share a sin then, because he was a Bernie supporter too in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Right.
Does your conservatism in Hollywood, in the performing arts, does it get in your way? Is it discrimination? Are you discriminated against because you have conservative beliefs?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I'm blacklisted from certain things. I'm not, going to be hired by certain people. Absolutely. But there's more support behind the scenes than I know. And I've had people tell me that, people who are connected to big time people. And I'm moving into doing more acting as well. I just started a feature film called The Contrast. And it's a romantic comedy. I'm so excited. It comes out spring 2020. It's absolutely fabulous. It's beautiful. It's funny. And, they hired me knowing who I am. And they wanted me. And I cannot wait for that to come out. I'm also executive producer. So I'm getting into looking at more production. I'm being sent more scripts. I'm taking more meetings here in Hollywood with film producers and directors who want me to come on board. And it's just an absolute dream. I'm living my dream. So I'm fighting it no matter what. I mean, of course, there's people out there who will never work with me because of my politics, because of their racism, because of their lack of, intelligence and ability to communicate with someone across the aisle. But that's not going to stop me, because there's a lot more people out there who will. And eventually people are going to see that, Republicans Republicans buy sneakers too. That's what Michael Jackson was asked. Sorry, not Michael Jackson. Michael Jordan was asked about his sneakers when he came out with the company. It's like, it's like during the Bush era, original Bush, and they were saying some controversy about, politics. And he says, listen, Republicans buy sneakers too.
Right.
And that was it. They have to realize that. Hollywood has to stop making left-leaning propaganda films and start catering to a wider audience. There's plenty of us out there who would love to go see movies and listen to music. That's how I made it #1. I sold 30,000 copies in 4 days, because these are Americans who want to hear good music, who don't want all the crap, and they don't want to see somebody up there shouting their abortion or promoting drugs or promoting promiscuous sex. People are tired of that.
It is a shame that they just can't get past it. They don't seem to understand. But but as conservatives or classical liberals or whatever, I agree with you. We were talking earlier. We just really need to fight, and we need to learn to fight like Donald Trump fights. You need to fight them on their own terms. You need to hit them right in the nose and saying that's a lot of crap. I don't have you call me names. And I go, well, that just means that you don't have an argument, because you've run out of arguments when you start calling people names.
Yeah.
I learned that when I was 5 years old.
Exactly. Don't call people names.
They're fighting dirty, and we're not. They got the media, they got the education system, they got all these advantages, and they've been fighting dirty, and we've been trying to play fair and take the high road. Is it working, or is it not? Do we got to fight dirty to try to get back what was taken?
I think that we do have to, in some sense, fight dirty, but when you talk about dirty, I don't think we should actually be dirty.
Right.
I think we should stay ethical and stay the high ground. I think we should fight boldly.
Yeah.
Like, look what I did on the Grammys red carpet, and I continue to do. We should show up and be bold and be overt and be in their face.
Mm-hmm.
But do it with a smile, do it with class,
right.
do it with style.
Right.
Because, we're the ones who have the elegance and the intelligence to do that. So the more of us that do that and show up in our own sectors and whatever art form or whatever business or whatever message we can do to support this cause, to be pro-America. And sometimes I just tell people to simply say you're pro-America. That can be really powerful. Some people are not ready to say I'm pro-Trump or I'm pro-life. To say I'm pro-America.
Right.
And start the conversation with those around you and see what that means to people, because a lot of Democrats think they're pro-America, and then you realize, no. They want to import all kinds of other things. They want to have a reliance on China. They want to have a reliance on foreign governments. They want a one world, blah, blah, blah. That's not pro-America, And nationalism has become a dirty word, saying God bless America has become a dirty word. Unfortunately, these things are not dirty at all. But when you say just, I'm pro-America, and that's sort of like something, just wear an American flag and get a conversation started. You know, just stand up for your country, because if you don't, we're going to lose it. And we cannot afford to lose this country. We have a limited time. I know President Trump will get reelected, but we have to fight for that. It won't be easy. And we need to maximize those 4 years we have. Everyone needs to come out of the closet. Everyone needs to do a walk-away video. Everyone needs to get out there on Twitter, on social media, write your congressmen, write your senators. You know, everybody needs to come out, because that's the only way they're going to see. We need to start making the movies and the shows and the interviews and showing up in Trump shirts and MAGA hats and smiling, feeding the homeless with MAGA hats. Can you imagine, like, doing those type of things, but being proud Trump supporters? I think the fight evil with good.
People talk about this a lot, but you actually have met the president. You've had conversations with him. Donald Trump, in my assessment, is a man who actually loves this country and wants to do what he thinks best for it. Do you agree?
Yeah.
It's simple on it. I mean, that's just a simple argument. Everyone wants to cast him as some kind of monster. He's a man who just likes his country. Yeah, he's a businessman from Queens, and he can be a little rough on the edges. And if you attack him, he's gonna punch back. But he actually,
that's absolutely right.
But he is a fighter, and he wants to do in the long run what's good for this country. And it's just so, but they want to call him, again, what is it? It was Russia, racism, and then it was recession was their one, and now it's not Russia, so now let's talk about Ukraine. And they better be careful with that, because if you start looking at the Obama administration's dealing with Ukraine, Trump may not be the president that gets in trouble over this.
They're crazy.
And the professor here, I got to say, he wasn't a Trump supporter leading up to this, but once Trump became president, he's like, okay, he's my president. I didn't vote for him, but he's my president now. And then after researching and witnessing, we both kind of just witnessed what the left has been doing. It's like, wait, that's not right. You dig in further, and you see, actually, this guy's doing good and wants to do good, and when he can get things done, it's been doing good for as many Americans as possible. Can I say that, or am I racist for saying Americans?
You can totally say that.
You can totally. We can all, amongst us. Well, it's just the three of us talking here, so it doesn't matter. Right? We can say whatever we want.
Oh, okay. I just wasn't sure what I can say nowadays.
These days, it's hard. But I wanted to ask you in the end if you have upcoming projects. Your movie coming out in 2020 again was what again?
That's right. It's called The Contrast. That's coming out spring 2020.
And it's a romantic comedy. And can I ask you who without spoilers? Can I ask you who you play in it and your part a little bit?
I play the star. My name is Maria.
So you're the lady love interest in it.
I'm the leading lady.
Nice.
Well, that's typecasting. Okay, you make a good leading lady. And is there any? And you have other pieces or anything you'd like to talk about? I mean, I want to give you an opportunity to.
Yeah, I've got some new music coming out soon. I'm just working on stuff in the studio. Your listeners can hear Freedom Fight For It, like we mentioned earlier. That video's on YouTube and doing very well. It's really fun. It's about stopping censorship and being free. Definitely some more tours. I'll be back in the White House for some more events, and I'm doing a lot of speaking tours. Next year, I'm planning to do a college speaking tour as well. So if anyone wants me to come to their school or event or campaign for them, let me know. You can email me, joy@joyvilla.com. Go to joyvilla.com. Find me on Twitter @joy_villa, on Facebook @joyvillamusic, and Instagram @joyvilla.
Well, we're going to let you go, and thanks again for taking time to talk with us.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.
This has been Johnny and the Professor. Politics.
This is actually what makes this whole thing so comical.
Pop culture.
This is something that they're going to be prioritizing, and that is diversity. Now, this is stupid.
Common sense in senseless times.